Let's get started again. So, what is it you want most in life? Is it a house? Is it a car? Is it a partner? Right? A house with shelter, a car is a vehicle. You could want an airplane, maybe. Partner, someone for sex, companionship, kids. Is it food, sustenance? Is it travel, eating out, drinking, enjoying your senses? Is it money in the bank, security? We spend most of our waking time to get these things. If we sleep 8 hours, work 8 hours, commute 2 hours, and then buy groceries, cook, clean, shower, get ready, what remains for us to enjoy life, is what we really want, is maybe 2 to 4 hours a day at best. And if I take an average of that and take it as 3 hours, multiply that by 365 days, 80 years, beyond that you don't enjoy as much. It turns out that we only enjoy life for 10 years at best. Even out of an 80-year life, we enjoy life for 10 years at best. And what is it we're trying to enjoy? We keep the things that give us pleasure and make us feel good, and everything else we either tolerate or get rid of. If something needs too much repair, if it's time to get rid of it, that's what we do. If our relationship or friendship has too much fighting and conflict, then we replace it or live alone. In short, we go where there's pleasure and we avoid pain. Too much pleasure inevitably becomes a problem, and too little also becomes a problem. The Vedas tell us that some things give pleasure in the beginning, like instant gratification, such as food, sweet things, alcohol, drugs, pizza, whatever. And if you have too much of those things, then we suffer. Then some things are there which give us pain in the beginning, such as exercise or a new skill we're learning, but in time they give us greater pleasure as we learn to navigate them. But ultimately, all pleasure is short-lived and offers diminishing returns. In time, we no longer feel the same rush. Even if it was our greatest love, even if it was that car we bought, even if it is the place we went to, it's never the same as it was when we first came there. Our society and our conditioning are based on the idea that if it feels good, do it. Which means that if it is pleasurable, do it. If you examine this idea further, all pleasure is short-lived, temporary, fleeting. We spend our entire life hoping to get some pleasure at the end of the day or month or year, but if it doesn't happen, then we feel disappointed and let down. Is chasing pleasure the goal of life? To understand that, we need to ask, what is it I really want? Is it temporary pleasure or lasting happiness? What if you could feel good anytime, anywhere, regardless of the situations or circumstances that life throws at you? Is that possible? And if it is, would you be interested in pursuing that instead of these flimsy, unreliable, short-lived sensory pleasures? Good. So, where can one find such lasting happiness? Well, the very fact that you've been looking for it, it's been with you all along. It's right here within you, hidden away from the world and even hidden from your mind and your senses. Your soul, which is who you are, the real you, not who you think you are, not your body, not your mind. Your soul, you, are eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Satchit Ananda. Ananda means bliss. You are blissful. And anyone who connects with this part of themselves by quieting their mind will discover that inner bliss. It is an art, it is a practice, and millions have declared that it works over thousands of years. You can feel your soul's inner peace and bliss when your mind gets quiet. That as you connect with the source of your soul, or God, that bliss multiplies many times and ultimately turns to ecstasy. Now that is something worth devoting your life to. What do you think?
Sagare Gapada
We're now on the Bhagavatam 10th Canto, chapter number 48. Krishna pleases his devotees. We're going to see how the Supreme Being, the Supreme Godhead, loves to give pleasure to his loved ones. This is not a relationship that is a one-way street where we're the ones who are only serving God, but God doesn't care about pleasing us. And it's not also one way that God is only there to please us, and we just need to, well, maybe go to temple, church, whatever it is, once a week. No, it's not like that either. Pleases his devotees who are devoted. Devoted, that's the key word. So let's explore this a little further and understand. After understanding Uddhav's report, so if you remember, Uddhav had gone to Vrindavan. Uddhav is Krishna's friend, and he had gone to Vrindavan to meet with Krishna's family, who Krishna had grown up with, and his loved ones there, his friends and buddies and girlfriends and all of that. And he'd gone to let them know that Krishna's thinking of them and misses them, and to convey Krishna's love to them. So Uddhav spent many months there and then came back, and then he was telling Krishna all about how his family were there. They didn't have FaceTime and all that, but Krishna could see everything, and however, they could not see him. So after understanding Uddhav's report, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why do we say that? Because he is Sarva Atma, the omniscient soul of everyone. He's in everyone's heart, Param Atma, the great soul who is present in everyone. Along with our soul is present another part. That part is the part of God, Param Atma, the great soul. He's present with us at all times. He is our best friend. He is always with us. He never leaves us. Even if we leave him, even if we reject him, even if we abuse him, even if we want nothing to do with him, he's always with us, witnessing our life, witnessing whatever it is we're going through. So he is mentioned here as Sarva Atma, the omniscient soul of everyone, and the seer of everything. He's one who sees everything, Sarva Darshana. And although he knows exactly what's going on with all his family members in Vrindavan, and he knows exactly what happened with Uddhav when Uddhav went there, yet he desired to hear what Uddhav had to tell him. And after hearing everything that Uddhav told him, hearing his report, then he desired to satisfy the young serving girl Trivakra, who was troubled by lust. And so he went to her house along with Uddhav. Now, in the purport as explained, Krishna is the soul of everything, Sarvatma, and the seer of everything, Sarva Darshana. He certainly does not depend on spoken reports from messengers, yet he listened to Uddhav's report not out of need, but so that he could enjoy the bliss of listening to Uddhav's experience. So now as Krishna, well, I think it's best we go back to the story of Trivakra, this lady who had approached Krishna when he was first entering Mathura. And I'll go back to that text that we read at that time so that you get a little recap. So as Krishna and Balaram were walking down, and they had entered Mathura and they were walking toward King Kansa's palace, they saw a young hunchback woman with an attractive face who was walking carrying a tray of fragrant ointments. The bestower of the ecstasy of love, Krishna. Listen to this description. The bestower of the ecstasy of love smiled and inquired from her as follows: "Who are you, O beautiful one?" And look at her. She's a hunchback woman. She's not very pretty. "Who are you, O beautiful one?" "Ah, ointment. Who is it for?" "Please tell us truthfully. Give us both some of your finest ointment, and you shall soon gain a great boon. The woman replied, O handsome one, I am a maidservant of King Kams, who highly regards me for the ointments I make. My name is Trivakra. Who else but you two deserve my ointments, which the king likes so much? Her mind, overwhelmed by Krishna's beauty, charm, sweetness, smiles, words, and glances, Trivakra gave the brothers generous amounts of the ointment. Now, of course, if the king had come to know, he hated Krishna. So if he'd come to know she'd done this, he would have killed her. Anointed with these most excellent cosmetics which adorned them, these some kind of perfumes, right? Beautiful, made with natural, holistic substances, plant-based, not with chemicals. So anointed with these most excellent cosmetics which adorned them with hues that contrasted with their complexions. So they had some color as well. The two brothers appeared extremely beautiful. Krishna was pleased with Trivakra, so he decided to straighten that hunchbacked girl with the lovely face just to demonstrate the result of seeing him. Here's what he did. Pressing down on her toes with both his feet, Krishna placed one hand upward, pointing finger of each hand under her chin, and straightened up her body. So she went from being a hunchback to completely straight. Suddenly, by his touch, Trivakra was transformed into an exquisitely beautiful woman with straight, evenly proportioned limbs, large hips and breasts. Now endowed with beauty, character, and generosity, Trivakra began to feel lusty desires for Krishna. Taking hold of the end of his upper cloth, she smiled and addressed him as follows. Trivakra said, Come, O hero, let us go to my house. I cannot bear to leave you here. O best of males, please take pity on me, since you have agitated my mind. Krishna glanced at the face of Balaram, his brother, who was watching the incident, and then at the faces of his friends, the cowherd boys. And then with a laugh, Krishna replied, O lady with beautiful eyebrows, as soon as I fulfill my purpose, I will certainly visit your home, where men can relieve their anxiety. Indeed, you are the best refuge for us homeless travelers. Now, leaving with these sweet words, Krishna walked further down the road. So now we cut from that moment when he first entered Mathura to this moment now, which is perhaps a few months later, or maybe a few weeks, I'm not sure. And Uddhav and Krishna are going to Trivakra's home. Trivakra's home was opulently appointed with expensive furnishings and replete with sensual accoutrements meant to inspire sexual desire. There were banners and rows of strung pearls, canopies, fine beds and sitting places, and also fragrant incense, oil lamps, flowers, garlands, and aromatic sandalwood paste. The acharyas, the great gurus who have explained these verses, tell us that the sensual accoutrements in her house included explicit sexual pictures and herbal aphrodisiacs, yet Krishna went there to save her from material existence. You see, when Krishna goes somewhere, his intent is to bless that person. She was attracted to him, and likewise, Krishna means the most attractive one. So we are drawn towards the divine, drawn towards God, just as moths are drawn to a flame. That's the whole idea. Not some force, not fear, not to make you feel bad, not guilt. Those are not the ways in which we're drawn to God. We're drawn there because of his beauty. We're drawn there because of his incredible opulences of knowledge, of fame, of power, of strength, of just the way he is, just incredibly attractive. Right? If someone has incredible qualities, either it's incredible beauty or knowledge or strength or fame, we're drawn to that person. We want to be around them. Now imagine someone who possesses all knowledge, all fame, all beauty, all unlimitedly. How much more attractive that person becomes. And that's the definition of Bhagavan or God. So Krishna went there to bless her, to save her from material existence. Because see, whenever someone comes in touch with him, all their material desires drift away and they become spiritualized. Just as when an iron rod is placed into fire, it becomes like fire. So in his association, people get purified. Now, it doesn't mean they still don't have desire, just the difference is that they desire him. And it's not from a place of sensual or material enjoyment, but it's from a place of really connecting with him, because that's what yoga is. Yoga means union. Union means oneness with the divine, with God. And this is how it happens. It's a real thing. It's not just some merging into the light, but rather an actual union with a being with whom you can have a relationship. So when Trivakra, this lady who was now transformed from a hunchback into a beautiful woman, when she saw him coming to her house, she at once rose from her seat in a flurry. Coming forward graciously with her girlfriends, she respectfully greeted Krishna by offering him an excellent seat and other articles of worship. Uddhav also received a seat of honor since he was a saintly person, but he simply touched it and sat on the floor out of respect for Krishna. Then Krishna, imitating the manners of human society, made himself comfortable on an opulent bed. I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that this lady, Trivakra, may have also seemed to have been a prostitute, but at the same time, we'll read further and we'll discuss this a little more. Trivakra prepared herself by bathing, anointing her body, dressing in fine garments, by putting on jewelry, garlands, and perfume, and also by chewing betel nut to perfume her mouth, drinking fragrant liquor, and so on. She then approached Krishna with shy, playful smiles and coquettish glances. Calling forward his beloved, who was anxious and shy at the prospect of this new contact, Krishna pulled her by her bangled hands onto the bed, as he enjoyed with that beautiful girl whose only trace of piety was her having offered ointment she had done in the beginning to the Supreme Lord. You see, anything we do in service to the divine, to God, to Bhagavan, he receives it, places it in his heart, especially if it is done with love, especially if it is done with no ulterior motive. Most people, when they approach God, there's an ulterior motive. They want something out of him. But when someone approaches him just out of love, I just want you for you, then that has a very special quality. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the word Navasangam Hriya indicates that Trivakra was in fact a virgin girl at this point. She had been a deformed hunchback, and Krishna had recently transformed her into a beautiful girl. So he may have transformed the entire body. Therefore, she may have been once again restored to being a virgin. Therefore, although clearly lusting after Krishna, she was naturally shy and anxious. Simply by smelling the fragrance of Krishna's lotus feet, Trivakra cleansed away the burning lust Cupid had aroused in her breasts, chest, and eyes. With her two arms, she embraced between her breasts her lover, Krishna, the personification of bliss, and thus she gave up her long-standing distress. So just by embracing him, she felt a deep peace come within her. Having thus gotten the hard-to-get Supreme Lord by the simple act of offering him bodily ointment, the unfortunate Trivakra submitted to that Lord of Freedom the following request. Now, it's very interesting, the use of words, the Lord of Freedom, because he is free. No one can bind him. Yes, last time we heard of how Mother Yashoda tied him up with rope, but he didn't let her for a long time. And then he did when he saw her sweating and he saw her struggling to tie him up, because he was a baby at the time and he'd been naughty, he'd been stealing butter, and so she wanted to tie him up, she wanted to punish him. And of course, nobody can punish him and nobody can bind him, but yet he lets her out of love. So the same thing is being said here, that although Trivakra was unfortunate, she had been a hunchback, she had become old, because she had given Krishna that ointment, fragrance that she had made, he had blessed her with changing her entire body, and now he'd come to her home as he had promised. Trivakra said to him, "Oh, beloved, please stay here with me a few days more and enjoy I cannot bear to give up your association, O lotus-eyed one. So in the purport, Srila Chakravarti Thakur says, Trivakra prayed to Krishna, please enjoy only with me and not any other woman. No, that's not possible for Krishna. He is not because he's some playboy, not because he's some, debauched person. No. That may apply to us as humans. But this is the supreme being. Everyone is his lover. And everyone has a loving relationship. And however a person wants to love him, he reciprocates accordingly. If you want to love him as a baby and as your child, then he will have that relationship with you. If you want to love him as your parent, as a parent, then he's happy to have that with you. If you want to love him as your friend or as a lover, then he'll reciprocate your desire to love him. So there is no way any one person can say, you just be mine. We would all like that, but that's not how it works. He's everyone's. He belongs to no one. Because Krishna was not prepared to grant such a benediction, Trivakra is described here as unfortunate. Sridhar Swami adds that although to ordinary eyes she seemed to beg for material sexual pleasure, in fact she was a liberated soul at this point. He had already touched her. He had already liberated her. He had freed. She was no longer part of this world in that sense. She was here, but liberated. Krishna is called Amburukshena, the lotus-eyed one. He is the source and embodiment of all beauty, and naturally Trivakra was attracted to him. However, his beauty is spiritual and pure, and his intention was not to gratify himself with Trivakra, but rather to bring her to the point of pure spiritual existence. Promising her the fulfillment of this lusty desire that she had, considerate Krishna, Lord of all beings, paid Trivakra his respects and then returned with Uddhav to his own supremely opulent residence. Vishnu, the supreme Lord of all lords, is ordinarily difficult to approach. One who has properly worshipped him and then chooses the benediction of mundane sense gratification is certainly of poor intelligence, for he is satisfied with an insignificant result. So we began talking about pleasures and how much greater the pleasure of connecting with our soul and through our soul connecting with God is. We all want pleasure. We all want love. We want happiness. But why do we want these things? We want them because they are innate in us. Our soul is innately blissful. Our soul is innately filled with love. Our soul is innately wise. Our soul is innately eternal. And because it is so, therefore we seek these things in the world, not knowing that what we are seeking is already here. It has always been here. And it is a universal principle. Everyone seeks these things. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to get old. Why? Because the soul never gets old, never dies, never gets sick. Once we understand this simple principle, we will understand that what we were looking for was with us all along. But we need to uncover that. And to uncover that, we have to peel through the layers of all the impurities that we've collected in the course of many, many lifetimes. What are those impurities? Our karma on one hand, and on the other hand, our desires. These things need to be gotten rid of. In the process, we need to get rid of lust, anger, greed, all kinds of, because what happens is that we are filled with desires. When it says lust, it means a desire for enjoyment. But we want to connect all of that with the divine, with God. And as we connect our desire, as we connect our longing, as we connect every part of our being with that supreme being, then we begin to experience what we've been looking for. You can't get it just like that. It's not available in the world any more than water is available in a desert. So the story of Trivakra is to be understood on two levels. On one hand, she is understood to be a liberated soul, directly associating with the Supreme Lord and is participating in his pastimes. On the other hand, her conduct is clearly meant to teach a lesson about what not to do in relation with Krishna. Supreme Lord's pastimes are not only blissful but also didactic. That is, they are intended to give some instructions, a moral instruction. Trivakra's purity and her bad example take place on two distinct levels. Arjuna is also considered a pure devotee, yet by initially disobeying Krishna's instruction, if you remember the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna did not want to fight in the battle. And Krishna, on the other hand, said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. That was a mind-blowing statement. What do you mean? We get attached to people. We lament if we lose anything. Anything. You know, you lose a bit of money and you oh my God, what happened? I lose my phone. Yeah, we're just distraught. What to say of life itself? The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So clearly we're not wise. Clearly we are not where it's at. But how is it possible to get there? And he shows Arjuna how you need to get there. What is the process? And that process of bhakti or devotion, divine love, is what the entire Bhagavad Gita is all about. So, in the initial stages, Arjuna is disobeying Krishna. He's saying, no, I will not fight. And then Krishna illuminates him. It's okay to have your doubts. It's okay to have your questions. It's okay to want to know. It's okay to disagree. It's perfectly okay. And then pursue relentlessly the answer. So what they're saying here is that even though she wanted him from a lusty place, Krishna purified that lust and turned it into love. There's a difference between lust and love. Lust is, I want for me, my pleasure. It is a selfish thing. That lust doesn't have to be sexual. It could also be wanting the pleasures of the world. I want to enjoy, but that enjoyment is for me. And because it is egoic, because it is self-centered, therefore it is referred to as lust. But love, on the other hand, is I want to see my beloved happy. I want to please you. I want to give you pleasure. Your pleasure is my pleasure. And when that turns into divine love, then it's called prem. That prem is what Krishna is trying to give to her, to Trivakra. And that prem is what he's trying to give to all of us, that divine love. Then Krishna, he had some other things to do, so he said, he took leave and he said, I'm heading out, I'll be back. Then Krishna, wanting to have some things done and to please his devotee, went to Akrura's home with his brother Balaram and his friend Uddhav. When Krishna arrived there, so I don't know if you remember Akrura. Let's go back over the little story of Akrura. He was the one who was Krishna's uncle. And he had come to Vrindavan to bring Krishna. On the order of the king comes, he had come to Vrindavan to bring Krishna to Mathura from his home in Vrindavan. Now, Krishna was a small boy of 11 years old. And Akrura came there on his chariot, and here he is. He sees Krishna's footprints in the sands of Vrindavan, and he comes off his chariot, bows down to those footprints. Those are the most difficult to obtain in the entire universe. And then all the people of Vrindavan rushed in, seeing that Akrura had come to take Krishna away. They tried to stop him. But it was time for Krishna to go. Time for him to go back and do what he'd come here for, which was to not only to give pleasure to the devotees, but also to annihilate the evil persons in the world who were creating trouble for everybody. And so they tried to stop him as much as they could, but the gopis, all the people of Vrindavan could not. It was a very tragic and sad moment. And then later on, when Krishna and Balaram left, and Akrura, along with Akrura, the uncle, they stopped by a river, and there Akrura had a vision where he saw who Krishna really is. This Krishna who was sitting on the chariot, he saw him to be Vishnu. And he saw all the sages and demigods gathered around, worshipping him. And he saw this vision while he was in the ocean. I'm sorry, in the lake, while he was bathing in that lake or river, whatever it was. Now, Akrura had been sent by the king Kans. And once Krishna came to Mathura, then he got up and killed king. The king had imprisoned Krishna's parents, and he'd had them in jail for around 18 years. He had killed all his Krishna's brothers and sisters, and he had been vicious in his rule, killing and raping, and he was a complete tyrant. So now Krishna had come to Akrura's home in Mathura, of course. Akrura stood up to great joy when he saw Krishna and his brother Balaram and his friend Uddhav. Akrura and his relatives stood up to greet Krishna, the most exalted personalities coming from a distance. After embracing them and greeting them, Akrura bowed down to Krishna and Balaram and was greeted by them in return. Then, when his guests had taken their seats, he worshipped them in accordance with scriptural rules. So, in today's time, when somebody comes to our house, at best we'll sit them down, maybe make them a cup of coffee or something like that. But the customs in Vedic times were very different, especially if it was somebody highly evolved, like a great saintly person came. And in this case, it was the Supreme Lord himself. So he had come to Akrura's house. Akrura had sat Krishna and Balaram down, and then he bathed their feet, took a bowl of water and bathed their feet. He poured the bath water on his head after he'd done that, and then he presented them with gifts of fine clothing, aromatic sandalwood paste, flower garlands, and excellent jewelry. I imagine if he had come to your house, if Krishna arrived at your home, how would you receive him? After thus worshipping the two lords, Krishna and Balaram, because Balaram is no different than Krishna, Akrura bowed his head to the floor. He then began to massage Krishna's feet, placing them on his lap. And with his head bowed in humility, he addressed Krishna and Balaram as follows. It is our good fortune that you have killed the evil king and his followers, and thus delivered your dynasty from endless suffering and causing it to flourish. You both are the original supreme person, the cause of the universe, and its very substance. Nothing in this creation exists apart from you. O supreme absolute truth, with your personal energies you create this universe and then enter into it. Thus, one can perceive you in many different ways by hearing from authorities and by direct experience. It's a very important point here. You can hear from authorities, like you read the Bhagavad Gita or this text, the Bhagavatam, but you can also have direct experience. There are many who have had direct experience. You can hear that voice of the divine, of God within you, because he's there in your heart, and he will speak to you. But you need to learn one thing, and one thing that is extremely important, and that is how to quiet your mind. Once you have mastered that art, there's nothing going on inside. Then you can ask questions and he will answer. Because you can't have two people talking at the same time. If your mind is talking, then God isn't talking. And when God is talking, your mind should not be talking. It was what Kabir had said. He says, when I was there, when I existed, the I, the sense of me, this is I, me, and mine, then God was not there in my life. Now I no longer exist. The ego no longer exists. And Hari has come, is now mine. He is with me always. Krishna is with me always. Jab main tha, tab Hari nahi. Ab Hari hai, to main nahi. So just as the primary elements, Akrura is now glorifying Krishna. He's now, revealing philosophically who is Krishna. Just as the primary elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and so on, manifest themselves into abundant variety among all species of mobile and immobile life, right? All the elements, they take various shapes, including these bodies, including all of nature. So they manifest themselves in abundant variety among all species of mobile and immobile life. So you, the one independent supreme soul, appear to be manifold among the variegated objects of your creation. You create, destroy, and also maintain this universe with your personal energies, the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness. Yet you are never entangled by these modes of nature or by the activities they generate. Since you are the original source of all knowledge, what could ever cause you to be bound by illusion? See, we are all bound by illusion, by Maya. And what is that illusion? We think that we are this body. But are you this body? Your soul came into your mother's womb when you were born, when you first conceived, and then you came out into the world. in a body. That body went from being a baby to being an infant, a toddler, a child, a teenager, an adult. If one day it will get old, and then one day it will die. And then at that point, you will leave this body and you will go into another one. But that's why he says the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. The soul changes bodies just as we change clothes. So with that in mind, we are identified with something which is an illusion. This is not the real self. This body is not you. You're spending your whole life trying to give pleasure to this body, trying to enjoy this body, trying to fulfill the demands of this body. But this is not who you are. And no matter how much you give to this body, it will never be satisfied. Okay, I'm going to satisfy my mind, but I'm not my mind. I have a mind. I have a body, just like I have a car, I have a house, I have a mind. I'm not my mind. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I have these things. And once I understand that, I can actually begin to steer them around in the direction I want them to go. I meaning the soul. I am the life force within this body. I am what makes this body come alive. If I am not in this body, then the body just falls down to the ground, unable to move. Nothing can be done to revive it once the soul has left. Nothing. It is just a lump of flesh of no value. You will burn it, bury it, feed it to the vultures in some cultures. But the body itself has no value. Yet you devote your entire life to this body. You become its servant to this body, mind, organism. And it's not even who you are. So the beginning of spirituality is where you begin to find out, who am I? And when you discover that spiritual essence and you discover the source of that spiritual essence and what is the cause, then you start to get out of the illusion. You get out of this Maya or this matrix, if you want to use that. He says to Krishna, for you there is neither birth nor duality. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, and never will there be a time when we shall cease to be. Never. Birth is an illusion. Death is an illusion. They are like the rising and setting of the sun. Does the sun die when it sets? No. You know it will come again next day. It will rise again. When the sun rises, is it born? No. So it is neither born nor does it die. Just because it is visible to you doesn't mean it was born. Doesn't mean because it's gone away from your eyes doesn't mean it has died. Similarly, when a person dies, it doesn't mean that they have ceased to exist. The soul can never be destroyed. The soul never dies. The soul is eternal. Energy is eternal. And so is life energy. Material energy is eternal, can neither be created nor destroyed, and neither is life energy. Neither can life energy be created or destroyed. So he says to Krishna, for you there is neither birth nor duality. See, duality is, the entire world is full of duality. In this world, there is something that is good, something that is bad. You like this, you don't like this. It is hot, it is cold, it is right, it is wrong. We're constantly in this game. The whole mind is operating on only one thing, duality. Plus and minus. It's like the computer code, right? Ones and zeros. The entire mind is working on just that code, duality. And everything is being filed under that. I like this, I don't like this. This feels good, this feels bad. I like this person, I don't like this person. Like that. It's such a simplistic thing. So he says, you are free of duality. To be free of duality is to be free of the control of the mind. It's such a powerful thing. He says, Krishna, for you there is neither birth nor duality. That means the illusions of the world don't exist for you. Therefore, you never undergo bondage or liberation. Bondage meaning bondage to this world, bondage due to karma. Right? Therefore, you don't undergo karma. Right? And therefore, there is no need for liberation for you. Since there is no karma to bind you and there is no mind or body that is binding you, you are always free to come and go as you wish. You appear only because of your desire that we see you in that way, or simply because of our lack of... And sometimes we're not able to because of our lack of discrimination. You originally enunciated the ancient path of the Vedas for the benefit of the entire universe. Whenever that path becomes obstructed by wicked persons following the path of atheism, you assume one of your incarnations, which are in the transcendental mode of goodness, and revive the Vedic wisdom. Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. That whenever and wherever there is a disruption in the codes of dharma, I appear millennium after millennium to annihilate the miscreants, those who are creating trouble on this earth, and to establish the principles of dharma. Right? He says to Krishna, he says, you are the supreme person and you have now appeared in the home of Vasudeva, that is Krishna's father's name. You have done this to relieve the earth's burden by killing hundreds of armies led by kings who are expansions of the demigods' enemies, the Asuras, and also to spread the fame of our dynasty. So basically there was a huge world war that occurred at that time, the Mahabharata. People from all over the world engaged in that war. More people died in that than our World War II and World War I combined. The numbers are vary. Some people say 18 million, some say more than that. Whatever it was a world war, and pretty much everyone, both sides, was killed except for the brothers, the Pandavas, and Krishna, of course. But at this point, Akrura already knows what's ahead, what's about to happen. That would come much later, many years later. Akrura now says, today my home has become most fortunate because you have entered it. You are the supreme truth, and the water that has washed your feet purifies the entire universe. Indeed, O transcendent one, you are the spiritual master, the guru of the universe. A learned person would not approach anyone but you for shelter. For you are the ultimate shelter. You are the affectionate, grateful, and truthful well-wisher of your devotees. To those who worship you in sincere friendship, you reward everything they desire, even your own self. You give yourself, yet you never increase or diminish. So even though you give yourself, you never increase or diminish. It is by our great fortune that you are now visible to us, for even the masters of yoga and the foremost demigods, the devas, can achieve this goal only with great difficulty. Please cut the ropes of our illusory attachment for children, wife, wealth, influential friends, home and body. All such attachment is simply the effect of your illusory energy, your material energy, Maya. So contemplate these words. All of us are bound by the ropes of attachment. And I'm not saying attachment is a bad thing, it's a natural thing. But this attachment, if we do not understand it, it will bind us to this world karmically. Try to understand it and what it means to be free of that attachment. Being free of the attachment does not mean you have to give up your children, your wife, your wealth, your friends, and so on and so forth, your home, your body. No, it's not you give it up. You simply understand that everything, including my family members, including what I own, belongs to God. That's a simple thing. And you can live in it, you can enjoy it, but you understand who the real ultimate proprietor is, because these things existed before you had them, and they will exist after you leave them. That's to say, if they're not destroyed in that time. But those people, those things that you enjoy and that you call yours, are not indeed yours. Today, if you were to die, they would still remain. They'd go to someone else. So who do they really belong to? And that person will not have them all their life either. They will go on to someone else. The wealth you've had will be inherited by your kids, will be inherited by their kids. Who does it really belong to? Not to any of the people who claim it's theirs. It belongs to the source of everything, the creator of everything, God. So that supreme being, that divine lover, gives us all of this so that we may have a wonderful life. But if we now start to claim this is ours, it's like if somebody comes as a guest to your home and now starts to claim the things in your home as their own, well, that's not good. They can live in your home. They'll come as your guest. They can enjoy it. Or if you go to a hotel, right? And you go to the hotel, you're there for a few days. It doesn't mean you can start taking the furniture and the TV and everything else away with you. It's not yours to take away, right? It belongs to the hotel. So similarly, everything in this world belongs to the world, and the world is the creation, is not your own, is not your creation. the ingredients of this world and the energies, even this body. You didn't create it. Your parents didn't create it. It was nature. What is nature? Nature is an instrument of God. So when you put it all together, you begin to understand why he's saying, please quickly cut the ropes of our illusory attachment. All such attachment is simply the effect of your illusory material energy. Thus worshipped and fully glorified by his devotee, the Supreme Lord smilingly addressed Akrura, completely charming him with his words. Krishna said, "You, my dear Akrura, are our spiritual master. You are my guru. You are my paternal uncle and praiseworthy friend. And we are like your sons," Krishna and his brother Balaram. "We are always dependent on your protection, sustenance, and compassion." So you see the humility he's expressing. He's not sitting like some pompous character saying, yo, man, you're right. I am the source of everything. You better worship me. No, I'm not an angry, wrathful God. No, he's giving respect to Akrura. He says to Akrura, exalted souls like you are the true objects of service. Means we should all be serving you. And you are the most worshipable authorities for those who desire the highest goal in life. Devas or demigods are generally concerned with their own interests, but saintly devotees like you never are. No one can deny that there are holy places with sacred rivers, or that the devas or the demigods appear in deity forms made of earth and stone. But these purify the soul, and only after a long time. Whereas saintly persons such as you purify those who come in touch with them just by being seen. You are indeed the best of our friends, so please go to Hastinapur, which is New Delhi now, and as the well-wisher of the Pandavas, find out how they're doing. So they were Krishna's relatives, the Pandavas. If you've read the Mahabharata, you'd know about them. This was this family called the Pandavas, and they were engaged in, eventually there are two camps in the Mahabharata, the big world war that I was telling you about, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Kauravas were the children of Dhritarashtra, the blind king, and we'll be learning more about that. The Pandavas were the 5 brothers, and again, we'll go into that whole story. Let me see, I don't think we've got enough time today, but perhaps next time. So Krishna is sending Akrura to Hastinapur, which is now New Delhi, to find out how the Pandavas, his relatives, are doing. We have heard, he says, that their father, Pandu, passed away, and the young Pandavas were brought with their anguished mother, Kunti, to the capital city by King Dhritarashtra, and they are now living there. Indeed, weak-minded Dhritarashtra, the blind king, has come under the control of his wicked sons, and therefore that blind king is not treating his brother's sons fairly. Go and see whether Dhritarashtra is acting properly or not. When we find out, we will make the necessary arrangements to help our dear friends. After instructing Akrura, Krishna returned to his residence accompanied by Balaram and Uddhav. Yeah. So now, let's see. Let's continue. Akrura then went to Hastinapur, where he saw King Dhritarashtra and his sons, as well as the Pandavas and other close friends. Actually, you know what? If y'all have any questions, I'd love to take that up. If you have any questions, do write them down. Whether you're on Instagram or you're on YouTube, I'd be glad to answer your questions. So, and if you have no questions, then I'll continue. Let's take a moment's gap. No questions? Are you sure? I've been blabbing on for a long time. I'm sure you have something you thought about while you're listening. So many of you are here. Okay. No questions. All right. Great. Let's continue. So now Akrura is going to Hastinapur. He's going to New Delhi, where he saw King Dhritarashtra and his sons, as well as the Pandavas and other close friends. I think I'll get some pictures on the screen for you to look at and get a better idea. After greeting all his relatives and friends, they asked him for the news of their family members, and he in turn asked about their welfare. So they're asking about how are Krishna and his family doing, and of course Akrura is asking how they're doing. Akrura remained in Hastinapur for several months to scrutinize the conduct of the weak-willed king Dhritarashtra, who had bad sons and who was inclined to give in to the whims of their mischievous advisors. Kunti and Vidura, now I'm going to show you the pictures of these people so you get more familiar. Kunti and Vidura describe to Akrura in detail the evil intentions of Dhritarashtra's sons. So let's go back a little bit. I'll give you some background here. This is how it all began. This is the King Pandu, and he was to become the king of Hastinapur, which is now New Delhi. And there was a time when he was out in the forest with his two wives, Madri and Kunti, and living in the forest in a hermitage. He went hunting. Now, kings at that time were the only ones who actually ate meat, but they had to hunt. So he saw some deer there, and he shot an arrow at one of the deer, and it turned out that these deer were actually mystic yogis, and that they had, a male and female. And when he shot them, the real form of these mystic yogis came out, and it turned out that he had killed the wife of this one powerful yogi. They had taken that form so that nobody would disturb them and they could have sex in the forest. And they didn't realize that some guy would come along and shoot them. So as the yogi's wife was dying, he cursed the king. He said, just as my wife died while we were having sex, you too will die in the same way. So now, poor Pandu, he was there with his two wives, and he abstained for a long time and did not have sex with them. And he says, no, I'm going to be celibate, and because otherwise I'll die if we have sex. Because these sages, these rishis, whenever they said something, it would come true. Now, the next thing that happened was that one day he wasn't able to control himself, and he ended up having sex with Madri, one of his wives. At which point he died, Pandu. And Kunti was left with their 5 sons. So that's there's Kunti when he's died, Kunti and Madri. And so with the 5 sons, Kunti returned from the forest where they'd gone to live and returned back to the kingdom. Pandu was supposed to have become the king, but now he was dead. And Pandu's brother, Dhritarashtra, became the king. So these are the 5 sons along with their mother Kunti. So it's a very tragic incident. And what then came about was the younger brother. Well, actually he was older, but because Dhritarashtra was actually older than Pandu, but because he was blind, he was not allowed to be king. But now that the brother Pandu had died, Dhritarashtra was made king. So he was the blind king. He's the one who, when the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, it is spoken to him. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Dhritarashtra by Sanjaya. And this is when Dhritarashtra marries his wife Gandhari, and she wasn't blind, because her husband was, she decided she would also close her eyes, and that way she would not be in a superior position to her husband or look down upon him. And they had a number of sons who were quite wicked and evil. These boys, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari's sons, hated the 5 Pandava brothers. So that's sort of the background of this whole story, which this then ended up becoming the Mahabharata. Kunti, on the other hand, was an incredible lady, the mother of the Pandavas, the 5 brothers. She was an incredible lady and a tremendous devotee of Krishna. So Kunti, there are some beautiful prayers by her. There's some wonderful wisdom that she imparts. Incredible person. And these are the 5 sons as they got older, became tremendous warriors. And the entire Bhagavad Gita was spoken to one of them. His name was Arjun. He was an archer. He was the most famous archer of his time. All right, so now that you know the background and the people, Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, along with Vidura, they were speaking with Akrura. Akrura was the uncle who had come on Krishna's behalf now. And so they started speaking of the evil intentions of the blind king Dhritarashtra and his sons, who could not tolerate the great qualities of Kunti's sons, such as their powerful influence, military skill, physical strength, bravery, humility, or the intense affection the citizens had for them. They also told him about the sons of Dhritarashtra who had tried to poison the five Pandavas and their mother, and carry out many other plots to drown them, poison them, all kinds of things. Burn them in a house made of wax. Kunti, taking advantage of her brother Akrura's visit, approached him confidentially. While remembering her birthplace, she spoke with tears in her eyes. Kunti said, "O gentle one, do my parents, brothers, sisters, nephews, family, women, and girlhood friends still remember us?" Keep in mind, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't even have landlines. They didn't have any way to communicate. It was only through people like Akrura who's visiting that they would get news of their family. So Kunti was asking about her family, possibly back in Mathura, and asking whether her family and friends remembered her. Did they ask about her? Does my nephew Krishna, the Supreme Personality and the compassionate shelter of his devotees, still remember his aunt's sons? And does the lotus-eyed Balaram remember them also? Now that I am suffering in the midst of my enemies, like a doe in the midst of wolves, will Krishna come to console me and my fatherless sons with his words? Then she says this beautiful prayer, Krishna Krishna Mahayogin Vishwatman Vishwabhavana Prapanna Pahi Govinda Shishubhish Chav Krishna, Krishna, O great yogi, O supreme soul, Vishwatma, you are the soul of the Vishwa, of the universe, and protector of the universe. O Govinda, please protect me who have surrendered to you. Prapannam, I and my sons are being overwhelmed by trouble. See, why does one need a form of God? Why does God take form? If that which is, so many people claim God is formless. Well, to them I would say, are you saying that God doesn't have a form or cannot have a form? If you say doesn't, then why not? If you say cannot, then again I say why not? Because it's very difficult to relate to something that's just an energy or a light. How do you relate to that? But if you talk to me that there is a being, then I can have a relationship. That being can have some stories, can have some you can describe that being to me, and then I can develop an attachment to that being. I can develop a sense of attraction for that being. I can develop a sense of love for that being. And that's exactly the whole idea of all these pastimes and these lila, is that we then develop that loving attachment to the Supreme Being. So he takes a form, and that form is eternal. It's not a temporary form. It's not that he incarnates for a little while and goes back into the light. No, some people make up all kinds of stories. But Krishna says very clearly in the Gita, I come in my original transcendental form. It's an eternal form. Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, Brahma says. You are Anadi, you are the original person. Right? There is no beginning or end to you. So she's now calling out to this. This is what the beauty of being able to have a relationship with God. You have someone you can call out to. You can lean on. You can know is there for you, is supporting you, is guiding you, is there with you. You have a sense of belonging, connection. I and my sons are being overwhelmed by trouble, she says. For persons fearful of death and rebirth, I see no shelter other than your liberating lotus feet, for you are the Supreme Lord. I offer my obeisances unto you, Krishna, the Supreme Pure, the Absolute Truth, the Super Soul, the Lord of pure devotion, and the source of all knowledge. I have come to you for shelter. The purport is written, since Krishna maintains the entire universe, Kunti thought, surely he can protect our family. Kunti was overwhelmed by troubles, exhausted and helpless. She took shelter of Krishna. In her prayers in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kunti admits that all these troubles were actually a blessing, for they forced her to always be intensely focused on Krishna. See, I've had my own share of troubles. I don't know about you. Lots of problems come about in our life. At least I know I've had my share. And I've seen again and again, they bring me closer and closer to God. So they become blessings. You begin to see that the more you're going through stuff, the more it gives you an opportunity to surrender, the more it gives you an opportunity to realize that you don't have the strength, the power to necessarily deal with everything. You think you do, you want to, you try to, but very often you're not able to. So thus, meditating on Krishna, the Lord of the universe, Kunti began to cry out in grief. Both Akrura and Vidura consoled the queen by reminding her of the extraordinary way her sons had taken birth. That's a whole other story. I'm not going into that one. The ardent affection King Dhritarashtra felt for his sons had made him act unjustly towards the 5 brothers, the Pandavas, the sons of Kunti. Just before leaving, Akrura approached the king, who was seated among his friends and supporters, and related to him the message that his relatives, Krishna and Balaram, had sent out of friendship. Akrura said, "O my dear son of Vichitravirya, O enhancer of..." So he's praising him, praising the king, the blind king. "O enhancer of the Kuru's glory, your brother Pandu having passed away, you have now assumed the royal throne." Actually, the sons of Pandu should have been occupying the throne, but Dhritarashtra had seized the throne for himself on the death of his brother Pandu, because the boys at that time were too young. But now that they were older, they should have been placed on the throne. So Akrura continues, "By dharmically protecting the earth, delighting your subjects with your noble character, and treating all your relatives equally, you will surely achieve success and glory." Here he is kind of pointing out everything that Dhritarashtra, the king, is not doing. By dharmically protecting the earth, well, he ain't doing that. Delighting your subjects with your noble character, well, he doesn't have noble character. And treating all your relatives equally, well, he isn't treating them equally. You will surely achieve success and glory. If you act otherwise, Akrura says, however, people will condemn you in the world, and in the next life you will enter the darkness of hellish existence. Remain equally disposed towards Pandu's sons and your own. In this world, no one has any permanent relationship with anyone else, O king. We cannot stay forever even with our own body. What to speak of our wife, children, and the rest? Every creature is born alone and dies alone. And alone one experiences the just rewards of his good and evil deeds, of his karma. In the guise of dear dependence, strangers steal the sinful acquired wealth of a foolish man, just as offspring of a fish drink up the water that sustains the fish. Right? Sometimes you find that that even your own relatives will come and steal away the acquired wealth. A fool indulges in sinful activity or karma to maintain his life, wealth, and children and other and relatives, because he thinks these things are mine. In the end, however, these very things all abandon him, leaving him frustrated. Abandoned by his so-called dependence, ignorant of the actual goal of life, indifferent to his real duty, and having failed to fulfill his purposes, the foolish soul enters the blindness of hell, taking his sinful reactions with him. Now keep in mind, when they say hell here, they're not referring to some place where you go and you burn forever. No, hellish existence happens right now, right here for all of us. In our mind is hell, right here. In our experience of our body getting older and getting sick and eventually dying is a hellish experience. Some people live in more hellish places even in this world, and some people live in more pleasant and heavenly places on this planet itself, where there's beautiful weather, beautiful environment, and others live in very horrible environments, even on this earth. And what to say of in the universe, there are some planets that are more hellish and some places that are more heavenly. So that's what they refer to as hell. So the foolish soul enters the blindness of hell, taking his sinful reactions or his bad karma with him. Therefore, O king, looking upon this world as a dream, a magician's illusion, or a flight of fancy, please control your mind with intelligence and become equipoised and peaceful. Listen to these words because they apply to all of us. Looking upon this world as a dream, a magician's illusion, or a flight of fancy, please control your mind with intelligence and become equipoised and peaceful. For those of you who want to learn more about how to do that, I have very special courses on my YouTube channel and in person, whichever way you wish to learn. There are plenty of techniques for being able to do that. Dhritarashtra, the king, said, "O master of charity, I can never be satiated while hearing your auspicious words." He's now flattering him. "Indeed, I am like a mortal who has obtained the nectar of the gods. Even so, gentle Akrura, because my unsteady heart is prejudiced by affection for my sons, these pleasing words of yours cannot remain fixed in my heart, just as lightning cannot remain fixed in a cloud. Those who defy the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, who has now descended in the Yadu dynasty to diminish the earth's burden." See, who can defy the injunctions? In other words, dharma will prevail. You might wonder when you look at the political scenarios today, and sometimes it seems like, how will goodness prevail in this world? But it will. Dharma will always prevail. There may be a time where we go through adharma, we go through the opposite of dharma, we go through people being and doing very horrible things. But ultimately, dharma will return. And that's why Krishna himself comes if necessary. He says, "I offer my respects to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who creates this universe by the inconceivable activity of his material energy and then distributes the various modes of nature by entering within the creation. From him, the meaning of whose pastimes is unfathomable, come both the entangling cycle of birth and death and the process of deliverance from it." In other words, he says that Supreme Being creates the entangling cycle of birth and death, but also creates the means of deliverance from it. Having thus appraised himself of the king's attitude, Akrura took permission from his well-wishing relatives and friends and returned to Mathura, the capital of the Yadus. On his return, Akrura reported to Krishna and Balaram how Dhritarashtra was behaving towards his cousins, the Pandavas. All right, so with that, we end for tonight. Please let me see. I think someone's written something here. Let's see what that is. Clarity, thank you, thank you, thank you. Your words mean a lot. Really appreciate you saying this. To all of you who are here, I want you to know we're in this together. I'm no better than you are. I want you to know that I have no great knowledge, but this knowledge has been given to us for thousands of years to help us rise beyond the limited ideas of this world, our limited ego and our limited desires, to reach for something bigger and greater. If you'd like to know more, I'm here every Tuesday at the same time. We've been doing this at 10 o'clock Eastern Time and 7 p.m. Pacific, but I'm going to shift that for an hour earlier. Need to start bringing it to 9 o'clock Eastern and 6 o'clock Pacific time. So I hope you will be here joining me. I look forward to having you along with me on this journey. The videos of the Bhagavatam have been recorded and placed on my YouTube channel. So look for that. It's my name, Rohit Juneja. Or I think right now the channel is called Psycho-Spiritual Wisdom. So look for it there, and you'll find an entire playlist. There's a playlist of the entire Bhagavad Gita. There's an entire playlist of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are over 100. This is the 105th video, 106th maybe, video in that series. Each of them being an hour long. So you have a lot that you can watch during the course of the week, and I hope you do. I really appreciate your support, appreciate your love. Thank you so much for being here. I owe it all to you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.